Hi everyone, Kelsey Toner here from Be a Better Guide, and we have a special guest, Erik, who's tuning in. He runs Vantigo tours. They have a great site at Vantigo, Vantigo.com. If you wanted to follow along and check out his website. Erik, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on board.
No problem. So let's just begin. What sort of tours do you run? How long have you been doing this?
So I started about 5 years ago. We have now two locations with pretty unique vehicles. So in San Francisco, we have three VW buses that run city tours and beer tours. And then in the central coast of California, just about 3 hours south of there, there's another wine country called Paso Robles. We have a 1951 Ford minibus that runs wine tours that I'm currently driving and expanding and doing all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay, so what's the approximate size of your team?
So up in San Francisco, I got a team of about 4 people that work for me. We're actually hiring right now. And then they're all working about 32 hours a piece because, as you know, being a tour guide and doing multiple tours in a day, it's hard to be like, oh, do 40 hours. Let's see what happens. And basically, sorry,
you're slowly slipping away. Just let us know if there's an earthquake or something.
Yeah, you're right. So we're about 5 people, including myself.
Okay, and in terms of just a sense of do you have an idea of how many bookings you process a year?
Yeah, so bookings wise, we process a little over, I would say, 2,000 or so bookings. I actually think that number's gone up a little bit more since I last done reporting, and bringing in an annual revenue of about $500,000.
Okay, awesome. Congrats on building it up. When did you get started?
I was working in tech and bought my first VW bus, and unfortunately it was right when Uber started. So in California, all the permitting put a backlog in the application for commercially running about 6 months. So I had 6 months to learn my craft a little bit more. I'll definitely admit I've watched definitely a good amount of your videos as well in the past. And
right on.
but all the tips always help. And then it also helped because it gave me about 6 months to figure out my website and software and how I wanted to operate and see how everyone else was operating. So that was in August 2013 was really when I got my first official tour with the, commercial permitting and everything else. Obviously before that, a lot of beta testing.
Yeah, fantastic. And would you say that these are a combination of custom tours and set tours, or how do you balance those two?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Great question. So when I first started, I really was like, I'll take anyone on any type of tour possible because I need to get the reviews and I need to get going. So we did our fair share of, longer private tours. I did my fair share of short tours and really built it up to where we have enough people and demand now that I have a set schedule. These are the set tours I do. They all have a very similar starting time. But when I first started, I really needed like a really flexible software to say, I'll offer a tour at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1.
Sure.
As long as someone books, I'll do it. So, it's been really great to be able to go back and look at the data and the numbers, see the growth, but also make like tactical business decisions based on, now we have the demand and I don't need to be doing 3 tours in a day and killing myself and answering the phones at 8 at night. I mean, I still do, but I'm not chasing it so hard. Yeah,
that's awesome. So let's dive into that. And you hit on a couple things already, but in this series, we're really just focusing in on, website development is really a whole topic in and of itself, but really with booking software. So when did you start out? How did you make the decision to use booking software? Did you implement it right away?
Yeah, I had a tech background. When I started, I was working in tech as a software consultant and a team lead. And so I knew how important it would be to basically using a software and be able to, being a one-person operation, trying to answer the phones and emails. And I was still working at the time. That just wasn't going to work. So I needed some kind of platform to start with. So I actually started with a software that's still around, Resd.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was one of their first U.S. clients because Sebastian, their CEO, was definitely, emailing me a bunch back and forth. And unfortunately, I came from software, so I gave him way too much critical feedback. And
Okay.
later, then transitioned about probably 6 months in to Peak. And it was just when I was looking at the different softwares, just having that background, it gave me an idea of like, okay, what's going to work, what's going to be flexible. Really what I needed, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I needed a software that made me look bigger than I was. And what I mean by that is being able to offer tours at all times of the day and showing this availability so that I could get as many tours as I possibly could, but still only be operating with me in one bus. And then,
That's
now I have
amazing.
multiple,
Because you implemented this booking software right from the start, right? It was just you and a man with a van.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic. And
Um,
what were you looking for, or what would you say to somebody who's just first dipping their toe into this world? There are lots of platforms out there. You've mentioned a couple, Resd and Peak. How did you think about that decision? And especially as a software guy, it's kind of interesting to give advice to non-techies.
Yeah, I mean the thing is software's out there to help you, and even if it's a $99 or whatever the subscription or the fee amount, it's really there to get you bookings like while you're sleeping in bed. And if you get the right software, I mean the biggest thing I was looking for is some software that would give all the details that I didn't have to answer the phone for or email back and forth with, pickup times, where it's at, what the price is, who, what, when, and where. And the other thing I needed was really a portion because in my first year I expanded to a second bus, and I was offering, to be honest, too many types of tours. Like I was doing oyster tours and wine tours and all these fun tours, which were more me and my vanity and liking the hobby of like, let's go take people to eat oysters because I like eating oysters on the ocean. And it ended up where I needed a software that was able to say, resource management, and be able to say, I have 2 Volkswagens and they could do all 6 of these tours. One person books 1 seat in the morning tour. Okay, that van is allocated to only be able to do 3 of the products because all the rest of the tours are day longs. So I really needed, and that's a little bit of the minutia, but like I said, it made me look bigger than I was in offering 6 products between 2 guides and 2 vans. And also something that, I didn't even know it, but the biggest thing as you grow is employees, and being able to not, have something that gives them a schedule and they can log into an app or log into a desktop or their phone and be able to see everything. And that helps you, almost track their timesheet as well. So I looked at Fair Harbor, I looked at Resd, I looked at Peak. There was a couple out there, Zozy, Zola, TrekSoft, all these different ones. And I kind of honestly, I looked at the problems I was trying to solve as a business owner and being one operator who just didn't have a lot of time to be on the phone and doing emails, and looked at the pros and cons. What was the pricing versus how intricate? And that was the thing that I realized when I added my second bus. I needed something that had resource management capabilities and being able to, assign vehicles to tours when someone books, as opposed to, I know there's plenty of other operations and providers and people that I've talked to where they need something simple. They don't need it to have all the bells and whistles. And they're definitely, something as simple as a scheduler, but I needed something a little bit more verbose that was going to auto send emails, send review emails, be able to do that kind of stuff, but also allow my team to log in. And, because right now I have a second location, and all I do for my team up there in San Francisco is I go in and assign them tours, and they know their schedule, and I don't have to print out a manifest or a timesheet or, track it.
Get them on the phone. Yeah.
Different. Yeah, exactly. And that's just kind of the way I like to operate. There's definitely other ways of operating, but finding a software that allowed me to do that without much hassle.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. If there's any way you can put the phone back down again, it's just a hair shaky. That's perfect. What I was going to follow up on there is where you said saving you time, right? Because I think I'm such a huge fan of the booking software, mostly because I don't think people appreciate, one, just how much time it can save you. Of course, there's a learning curve where you're going to have to spend some time figuring out how all this stuff works. But to that, the day-to-day minutia, the volume of queries and questions, and are you available, and can you do this? All of that, I think, has, for everything I've heard from folks, is a steep drop-off, which gives you back valuable time to go find more vans, to meet with potential partners. And it's really a huge cost that I don't think most people think about, is just how much time you get back by implementing a software. Did you have the same experience?
Yeah, I mean, really, it came down to like, what am I worth an hour, right? Like, if I was a consultant and working for my company, what would I be charging? And when it comes down to like having a software that auto sends your emails and your reviews and can take payment and allows you to do, I mean, the biggest thing I'm a nerd on is reporting, being able to run reports and see where you're at and what time's the best tour time to run and these things. It
Can
saves
you
you
get into
so
a little
much
bit of the
time.
minutia there? What are some of the reports that you like to generate or have given you the most insight?
Yeah, I was kind of inspired. I watched this. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a TV show called The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis. But
Okay.
basically, that guy breaks down a bunch of stuff on, it's like Shark Tank for individuals. Anyways, so I came from a data analytics background. And the biggest thing is, like I said, when I started, I needed a software that allowed me to 10 a.m., 9 a.m., 2 p.m. every single time. And then I started doing the reporting and figuring out what was the most popular times that people were booking. And then distilled my product offering or my tours to, 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Those are the best times to offer our city tours. Gets the most people booking. It also allows people to have a morning activity and then book our tour in the afternoon, or vice versa. Like go on our Alcatraz tour combo. They go on our city tour in the morning. Afternoon, they have time to go to Alcatraz. So running those reports, also the reports showing like what last year, what was my profit versus this year as far as revenue? Am I hitting my June numbers or not? Or, all of us, there's a good example in San Francisco where all of us operators, a lot of us talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And so this last January, February, even November, December, you're able to call and say, we're down a couple $1,000s. Are you guys down? And everyone's kind of checking, and you're able to kind of commiserate, but also figure out, it's not just me. It's actually the market is down by 10%. And so those are the important things because, a tour operator, especially during the slow season, particularly in California, we don't have to shut down during the winter, but you're always trying to hustle what's the newest, greatest idea to get more people in the door. And that's one of the issues is that if you don't have the reports or the software to be able to look at that and give you clear numbers. I mean, you can use QuickBooks as well, but it's nice to have a tour booking software that gives you a breakdown analysis based on the tour that you're operating. Like, for example, we stopped doing our wine tours in Napa and Sonoma because I went and did an analysis and looked at like, which tours do I make the most money on? And with Volkswagens too, there's a little bit of there's always bated breath with we literally have an extra van at all times in case one
they're
breaks
not going to turn over.
Yeah, exactly. So we do our best, we do a lot of maintenance on them, but it's just something it's inevitably Murphy's Law. So I did the reporting on Sonoma wine tours actually don't make as much as I do in 2 city tours in a day. The guides actually make more tips if they're doing 2 city tours than they do on a wine tour. And if a van breaks down an hour north of San Francisco, there's a lot more tap dancing to do. Thank God for Uber because we don't have a we now have a bigger vehicle, but we always had backup plans. So using that reporting is invaluable to come down and look at it. And that's the thing is, I don't know how many other operators do it, but if you break down your tour on a cost per person basis, and then you run the numbers up and down to see, well, how many people do I need on board to break even? Like for us, we're a very high overhead. Our insurance, because we're running antique classic cars, is super high compared to someone who had a brand new Chevy Tahoe.
Sure.
And so, all these numbers you run up and you go, maybe the wine tour isn't the best product. As much as I love going to wine country, maybe I should do that once a month or once a week instead of trying to block out 2 city tours that I could give, and the guide's happier because they're making tips and all that kind of stuff.
That's wonderful. And your booking software, it links right in with like accounting software, or how do you manage those two?
I use Peak, and I know that they have some plugins. I don't necessarily do it that way.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest problems these days is the third-party resellers like Viator or TripAdvisor now, Expedia,
Yep.
all these guys that pay you later. A lot of times, what you actually get, your accrual versus what your software says. So I'll run my report, and Peak gets all the info that says, oh, this is how much you made this month, but the paycheck from TripAdvisor comes 45 days later.
Yeah.
So, I use and I know there's connections that way, but I don't think anyone's really got that accrual accounting problem fixed. Like, oh, we'll say this is half, you get all this money the next
Where does
month.
that
So we
fall?
actually know how much. Yeah. So I use, pretty easily use QuickBooks, but in that sense, Peak allows me to see based on all those third parties that come in. Oh, I am doing better. Like we've had the best June we've ever had, which is really weird in San Francisco because May we ever had. And usually people book March a ton of tours for the rest of their summer, or June for the rest of their summer. Mm-hmm. So all of us as operators around here are like scratching our head going like, why did things move up by a month? It's great to have all this extra income in May, but is this because the whole dynamic shift of people using TripAdvisor wholeheartedly to book, as opposed to, we can get into that later, but anyways.
Yeah, well, that's even a great touch point of at what point did you really start leveraging the connections to online travel agents like Viator and Expedia, and what percentage of your channel distribution is that?
Yeah, so, San Francisco has a very interesting debacle. The biggest thing we have is Alcatraz, and if you have an Alcatraz contract, that's like gold for the summer. You can sell whatever tour it's attached to because it's it's a niche, and it's just really the golden ticket.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And TripAdvisor does a great job of allowing people to search through there and say, I need Alcatraz tickets from this date to this date. Who has tickets available? And that, it's a great question. When did I decide to leverage that? Last year, I did sell some tours through TripAdvisor, but not all of my tours. And I will say, I think in the market, we're going to see an increase in all tours because all the third parties are going to be really selling them, and that's what everyone's talking about. But it's a 20% margin, and I get about 30% of my bookings right now, anyways, from TripAdvisor, which is, as a tour operator, it's good and it's bad. But for me, the truth of it is that having that connection validates you for people coming from overseas. Because a lot of people are scared, if I were to go book a tour in Mexico, I'd be like, is this website correct? Am I putting my credit card out in the dark web? Like, what's going on? And you trust TripAdvisor as your, knight in shining armor for another market. And I had someone from Australia kind of explain that to me and go, you know what? I totally get it. And I think we get a lot more overseas business because of that. But, I always tell people this too is, someone that comes in and books through TripAdvisor and they do a great job. Like we're number one in San Francisco for TripAdvisor on tours, and they have a great tour.
You say you're number one?
TripAdvisor. We're number one in San Francisco.
Congrats.
Numero uno.
Yeah, I had no idea going into this call. I was speaking to TripAdvisor royalty from San Francisco. Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, bated breath with that. But yeah. The thing I've really realized is that, that person is also your marketing business that goes back out and says, I had a great tour with Vantigo. They don't say anything about how they booked through TripAdvisor, and they tell their best friend back in the UK, when you go over to San Francisco, you got to book with this company. Because we also get about 30% of our business now is from word of mouth, which is pretty insane for a tour company to have that kind of return.
Yeah. So how do you measure that? Is that something that you can also set up surveys through your software, or is that just independent surveying that you did of former customers?
Yeah, great question. So our software allows to have custom questions. For example, one of the big things for us here in San Francisco, this is a great question, Kelsey, is pickup locations. San Francisco really has two places where all the hotels are at: Fisherman's Wharf, Union Square. So if you're a tour company, there's some schools of thought that you get big enough to say, well, we only pick up in one spot. But the convenience around here of having both spots and picking up both, that's where you pick up some extra customers, because you're like, well, oh, it's right around the corner from my hotel. Let's do it. Especially last minute bookings, sort of a thing. Someone 2 hours before, they're like, oh, we can walk a block and we're there. So the software has the ability, and any software out there should have the ability to have custom questions. And one of the questions I force people to answer is, how did you hear about us? And
this is in the booking phase when they're actually filling out the form.
Exactly. It's hard to gauge on really some people when they click like, I heard about you because of Google. It's like, well, did someone tell you about us? And then a month later you went and Googled us and you're like, oh yeah, it was Google that told me. But when we run our reports, that's one of the biggest ways we get people now is that word of mouth. I don't do much like reminding of people. I don't send monthly newsletters or something like that. Once a year, we send like around the holidays, like a update to everyone on like, stand by your van. Thanks for coming on a tour. This is where we're at. This is our new location. This is our team. This is what happened this year, sort of a thing. But the software has been crucial in the custom questions. You just can't go wrong. If you can get any data that helps you be better at your business, custom questions can really help you do that. And asking how people heard about you, as opposed to relying on like Google Analytics or something like that, is tantamount.
You mentioned reports. You mentioned linking into the OTAs, and I think you're absolutely right that more and more bookings, well, especially when TripAdvisor took out the website linking to companies, there's no way that didn't have a huge impact.
You got to be on board. Yeah, exactly.
You're getting into a pay-to-play environment, and there's like hacks and things that you can do. But the reality is, if you want to develop that as a channel, and it shouldn't be something like 60 or 70% of your bookings either, because then you're, a little change in algorithm, you're too dependent. So you need to really diversify your channels, no question. But aside from the OTAs and the reports, it's awesome that you're a data guy, and I think that having a booking software can make those reports a little easier to understand. Like you can go into Google Analytics and just be totally overwhelmed, have no concept of what's useful and what's not. From what I've seen, booking softwares, if they're doing a good job with it, they can give you reports that actually matter and that you could actually really get the insights that you're talking about. Like, oh, wow, I can shift the timing of my tour, or you drop tours altogether if they're not as profitable. Aside from these two things, what are some of the other favorite features of an online booking software that you appreciate or that you really find value?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I found value in is like the app that Peak has. And I'm pretty sure that most any software out there worth the salt has some kind of app, I would hope at this point. But the app has been, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but for my employees, it's invaluable because they log in on their phones and they pull up the app and it shows them their schedule, who's going to be at where, like what pickup location, how to text them or call them. We have a incentive compensation plan for our employees based on reviews, and every 10 5-star reviews they get some PTO. And
PTO, private time off. What is PTO?
Yeah, because in the United States, if you give it to them as a bonus, it gets taxed at like 44%. So giving it in the form of PTO, it's regular, it's just like they work hourly wages, but they could choose to take it. They could choose not to, and especially in tour guiding, having the PTO as a benefit, because most of us don't have benefits at all. It's just you're working. It's a seasonal, maybe a couple year job. So that's the way I'm kind of trying to build and hopefully get benefits one day. But that being said, the app, it allows my guides to also text everyone in the group. We also dabble with Airbnb experiences. They have a very similar platform of a group chat with everyone, but it really makes it easy to say, hey, everyone, they go on the app, they pull it up, they say, hey, we're all here. I'm at the location. They can even send a picture through the app. I mean, it's using your phone capabilities, but it makes it that much easier as opposed to someone going in and trying to set up a group text and say, hey, group, I'm at the pickup location. Where are you? But also has all these extra details, notes. stuff that you would expect on a manifest if you were printing it out, except it's on a phone. It says, Bob here is actually not going to be on the city tour portion. He's just going to be going on the beer tour today, sort of a thing.
And by the way, he's gluten-free, celiac, diabetic, has seizures, all the good stuff that is required in a manifest.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that you could have a message. I'm sure not all of them do, but the messaging is really interesting component to that. Do you do any point of sale, meaning using an app to process payments, or do they enter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the biggest things we recently implemented is, as you know, in the United States, a lot of guides make their money off of tips, and a lot of times people, especially in this society, are now not walking around with much cash. And so we do have hats and shirts and stickers and stuff that we do and can sell through the app, but also tips. We basically have the ability as an add-on charge. If someone says, I don't have any cash and I don't have a PayPal or a Venmo account, or, if I'm speaking Tekanese to anyone on the show here, I'm sorry. But I want to be able to tip. And so I basically set up as an add-on in the app that shows increments of $10 tips. So someone can come in and say, Bob, who's my tour guide, can go in and say, oh, okay, Jody here, whose card's on file, wants to tip me $20. I'm going to go ahead and hit the add-on for $20, and then just let Erik know, hey, I got tipped out via the app. Could you take care of me later, sort of a thing. So that's
do you actually hand it to the client, or they just kind of do it together via the app, or how does that work?
They kind of do it together. You could theoretically hand it to the client and say, pick what you want. It's kind of like when you're doing Square and you're like, can you sign this and put the tip in?
Yeah.
Peak doesn't really do that. I think they're working on it. We don't really have a lot of, like I said, we have a couple shirts and hats and stuff, and I should be doing a better job at pushing it. And that's one thing I think in a software, one thing that I've told our provider is that inventory management would be huge. The ability to say, oh, I'm running out of t-shirts. We need more. Because then that would allow me, I know there's the ability to sell these products when someone's going through the booking software. Brewvana in Portland, they do a great job. You buy a beer, you're doing a beer tour, and it's like, you want a hat, specialty hat that comes with your tour? Just let us know. And
so upselling during the process. Do they use Peak as well, or what software do they use?
They're Resdi. They use Resdi.
Yeah.
So I mean, Peak has the ability too, but they don't have inventory management. And so that's just like, those are things that if someone, if you were working at a marina or something where you had, like, we're going to rent you a boat, or we're going to do a water skiing tour lesson, would you also like to buy a life jacket or a sticker or a hat or something to go with it? And so the ability's there in Peak, and we've used it for hats and shirts, but there's not inventory management, which I think is, for some people, it's a really important feature to have.
Yeah.
And it was a pro and con that I went through. So that's just something like, other softwares may be way stronger on a point of sale, but not good at, like, trying to get that review email or the reporting, which to me, reporting to me is, I make life decisions based on reporting. So.
Yeah, and I thought your advice earlier in the call was great. I echo it often, which is, look at, when you're going to look at these software options, figure out where your pain points are, what your particular challenges are, just the stuff that you mentioned that people can relate to, like, oh, I've got to add a second vehicle, or I need a scheduler just I want to have some part-time people come help me. Make sure that those are the questions. And you can often get on demo calls with the teams. From what I've seen, the companies are very responsive. They spend a lot of one-on-one time with you, or will if you request it, to make sure that it's a good fit. Any other advice? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Any other advice to folks who are still on the fence, or basically we're over the course of the summer? I'm really trying to encourage folks to do this, to get some of their time back, to prepare for the future, and some of the ways we've talked about through distribution, but also just so you can focus more on growing your business. Any last piece of advice for people on the fence?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of hit it home talking about how these third-party resellers are really going to be taking a lot of the market share. So if you're not in a software that's connected to them, I was an adamant anti-Viator, TripAdvisor guy, and you just see the writing on the wall, and you realize, you know what, I going to need that business. I can't operate without being up front and center with someone on TripAdvisor. So software in general, I always tell people take their time. The biggest thing that I always tried to do is push the software company and give them some data and say, here's a year's worth of my reservations. Tell me something I didn't know. And, any good salesperson out there in software is going to be able to find someone or do it themselves and pull it up and give like if you change your tour time to this time, you'd make more money. I think that the big thing for me is, like I said, if it helps you run your business better, if it can make your employees not have to call you and they're calling you about other things, not about their schedule or their timesheet or anything, if it could connect to your accounting software or your schedule, if it cuts down on the amount of phone calls you get from people because they're able to easily book through your website. Especially I was a one-person operation and I was able to scale up to where I am now. And I wouldn't have been able to 5-10 years ago, if I had tried to start this by myself, I'd probably be up to 2 vans right now. And I would have hired someone who's sitting behind a desk doing it all. And I'm managing with the software. I'm managing a team of 4 in San Francisco while I start my second location. So it's important, but don't jump into software. Everyone's going to tell you that it does everything it needs to do. And like you said, Kelsey, what's your problem? What are the top 3 problems you have that software could help solve for you? And then ask the salesperson the same. These are the 3 problems I have. Show me, demo this software in an environment that looks like it would be me, and how it would solve it.
Yeah, I love that. Pushing those people as well with once you've got a little bit of data. Hey, do that after a couple months. Am I using this right? What would you recommend? Feedback on how I can help my business grow. Thinking of them as partners and is a great idea. Pushing them for a little bit more information.
And call other people. Call other people in your network. If you haven't reached out to other tour operators, call in a whole other market. Call Chicago. Call New York. All of us tour company operators are always loving to talk shop with other people and talk about our woes and everything.
Yeah.
But other people will tell you their unsolicited opinion. If you know someone that's using Resdy, call someone that's using Resdy and say, how is it? Does it work well? What's your biggest problem with it? And find similar companies and see see how they like it.
Another piece of advice I heard someone give is, there's often on these booking software companies, you can get company profiles. Here's people that are using our software. These are people often that are very happy, having a lot of success, but they'll also be honest too. If you just write them and say, hey, look, find their contact form. Do you have 15, 20 minutes for a quick call? I'm considering doing this. I just don't know if this software will do this for me, or get the pros and cons, like you said, not from a salesperson.
Yeah. I've done that so many times, and I've had so many, like you said, people call me that saw me on a website or saw my software and just said, hey, I'm thinking about this software. What do you think? And most of us as tour operators, we're going to give you the good and the bad. We're going to tell you, this is the pain point I have with it, but it solves so many other problems with me. I'm willing to figure this out, or I'm working. The other thing too is figuring out the clear channel of communication with the software company. Like I said, I work with Peak. They're really responsive. I call them out on a problem or an issue. They're talking to you with their tech support and all that, but also they listen to the operators, and so that's the thing is, there are definitely softwares out there where it's a big company and they're kind of like, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, but everyone has a unique software and tour and situation. And so everyone runs their business a little bit differently. And if they're not listening, I think that's another piece of advice I'd give is just understand what their ability to listen, or if they have conferences or calls with users, or if there's a user group or something, so that you can feel heard. Because once you have the software ID, you're happy, but you want more. How can this software make me, more profitable, make my employees happier, make me a better guide? Yeah.
Well, look, in that spirit, like you said, reaching out to other operators, I want to thank you on behalf of all the folks who tune into this. Your free advice and down-to-earth stuff was much appreciated.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kelsey, for having me on, and keep making good content.
Well, I will do my best. Quick plug to your website again, www.vantigo.com. The number one tour. That's just great, man. I'm teasing you a little bit, but God, that's a lot of work. So you're doing something right, and it's great to hear that the software is helping you grow.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, take care.